In 1967, Jim Thompson, a former CIA operative and a business magnate based in Bangkok, disappeared while on vacation in Malaysia. When he went out for a short afternoon walk, his disappearance led to the biggest search and rescue operation in the history of Southeast Asia. But neither he nor his body was ever found. Due to his celebrity-like status, wealth, powerful connections, and intelligence background, his disappearance sparked a number of theories about what really happened to him, including possible defection to China, kidnapping, or assassination. I also made a video about the case, with visual evidence and additional information. If that's more your cup of tea. Who was Jim Thompson? Jim Thompson was born into a wealthy family in Delaware, went to Princeton, and became an architect in New York, living a glamorous and very privileged life. But by the end of the 1930s, he decided to leave his old life behind. He joined the Army and he was soon recruited by the Office for Strategic Services, the predecessor of what then became the CIA. Once the Second World War started, he was sent to North Africa and then to Southeast Asia to work against the Imperial Japan. And eventually, he came to Bangkok, and he fell in love with the place. After the war was over, he decided to leave the OSS, stay in Bangkok and go into business. He went into the silk industry, making high-quality silk for cheap and selling it to his rich friends back in America. Eventually, he became enormously successful and really wealthy, and he also became kind of a celebrity that everyone in Bangkok and in most of Asia knew about. He was a rich, eccentric former spy who famously carried a parrot on his shoulder and who lived in the most beautiful house in Bangkok. But, according to his friends, he was also really lonely and kind of depressed. He never had children and his personal life was a disaster. And then one day, he disappeared. Disappearance. In March 1967, Thompson was visiting his friends in the Cameroon Highlands in Malaysia. His friends later said that he was acting weird on the trip and they could tell that he wasn't his usual self. On the day of his disappearance, Thompson was rude and agitated, which was out of character for him. In the morning they all went to attend the Easter service at the village church and then to a picnic in a nearby field. But Thompson was very reluctant and only joined after his friends insisted. When they went back to their house, they all retired to their bedrooms, while Thompson, without telling anyone, left the house. No one was worried because he would often go on long walks and they all assumed that he would be back for the afternoon tea. But he didn't come back. In the evening, they started looking for him, but he was nowhere to be found. The next day, he was declared missing, and the official search has begun. 325 Malaysian policemen and soldiers were sent to look for him, joined by pretty much all the British and American tourists in the resort. 30 Aboriginal trackers and CIA helicopters that were dispatched into the area. And a $25,000 bounty was declared for any evidence that could help to find him. The official search lasted 11 days. The unofficial search continued for months and the entire area was searched from top to bottom. But neither Jim Thompson nor his body were ever found. Theories. While there are about what could have happened to him, there are basically three main ones. Theory A. He just got lost, fell into a hole somewhere, and died. Could that happen? Well, yes, because there is plenty of wilderness in the Cameron Highlands in Malaysia and there are jungles where he could get lost and injured. So it is a possibility. But the area where he was staying is more like an English countryside, a residential area with private golf clubs and hiking trails, and Thompson would have to leave the trails on purpose and head straight into the jungle, and it's not clear why would he do that. It's also quite strange that Thompson's body would be never found if he really got lost, especially since there were so many people looking for him, including many local hunters who knew the forests like the back of their hands, but who did not find anything. Theory B. The second theory is that Thompson left on his own. He was vocally critical of the U.S. engagement in the Vietnam War and in the region in general, and when he disappeared, there were speculations that he defected to the Communists in China or Vietnam to help them fight against the Americans. But this theory makes little sense. Thompson still had a booming business in Thailand, and it's unlikely he would just leave everything all of a sudden. Theory C. He was kidnapped and/or murdered. Thompson was a chain smoker who had to constantly take painkillers due to a liver condition. But he left both his cigarettes and his pills in his room, something that would suggest that he might have been forced to leave. But there was never any ransom note. If he was kidnapped, it would have to be by someone who did not care about money, but it was never clear who that could be. In the past decade, there was sort of a breakthrough, thanks to a documentary about the disappearance called The Producers of the documentary found someone whose uncle told them a story about Thompson's disappearance as part of their deathbed confession. According to the story, Thompson was not in Malaysia on vacation. Instead, he was there trying to request a meeting with the chief of the Malaysian Underground Communist Party, at the time the most wanted man in the country, hunted by the Malaysian government. Why exactly he wanted to get in touch with him is not entirely clear, but he likely attracted the wrong kind of attention to himself. An older American known to be a former CIA officer asking to meet with a wanted communist leader had to be suspicious. And according to the producers of the documentary, instead of getting a meeting, the local communist cell kidnapped Thompson and killed him. However, whether that's true remains unknown. Although the documentary managed to find two different sources, they are both based on second-hand information from long-gone relatives that cannot be verified. And so unless Thompson's remains are found in the jungle one day, this mystery remains unsolved.